Zoe, hey, congratulations on Jumbo.
Thank you. Thank you.
I saw this film like a year ago when it came out on Sundance. I thought it was one of the best movies out of that festival.
Oh, great. That's thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's taken so long to bring it to you guys a year after the festival. It's been such a whirlwind journey. It's crazy.
Yeah, I told everybody this somehow this film is just mesmerizing in its own in its own way because it was so unique. You would think you've seen everything until you actually watch Jumbo.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like it was such a challenge. When you get with films like that, you suddenly end up with like 8 years of making it before it gets to Sundance. So, and now one more year of getting it to the screens after Sundance. But it's
So
great. Yeah, thank you.
so tell us because I know the story, but tell our viewers on where you came up with the original idea for Jumbo when you wrote it.
Well, it was quite simple actually. I was just, browsing the internet, and I went on one of those crazy sites with the big titles, that kind of push you to click, 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 click. And of course, I was one of those people that clicked on this article that was talking about this woman that married the Eiffel Tower, and I was like, what the hell? So I clicked on it, and I just started reading her story, and I was like, what could bring someone first to marry the Eiffel Tower and then to make it so public and talk to journalists and make it a real announcement, because I would think someone might be, ashamed, afraid of sharing it. And that person was so unafraid. And I remember just staying with the story for a while and talking about it to friends. And every time I would mention the story, it would create and spark so much debate, that I was like, oh, this is interesting. And people were going so many different directions talking about it. I was like, this sparks like many different things in people, whether it's like tolerance, but it's their relationship to their own body, their own sexuality, their own identity. So it just sparked so many emotions that I found it fascinating. And then I contacted Erica Ethel, and she was surprisingly normal. And I think that was the most surprising thing that I learned talking to her, that she was just like you and me. I was expecting someone a little, on the spectrum, obviously, but no, she wasn't. So I was like, oh, this is even more interesting. And then she would keep telling me about her love story, my love story, my love story. And I was like, well, what if it is a love story? Why don't we just talk about it like a love story? And so that kind of was the start of the film. I really started feeling close to Erica and understanding her when I started seeing the story as a love story instead of as a case study, And so that was the start of Jumbo. And then, when I thought about putting it in an attraction park, so we had a ride, I was like, well, that makes sense, because I even have emotions for ride because I'm so afraid on them, or I'm so excited on them, or I can laugh and yell. So I was like, yeah, that there's something there. And then you start writing, and there you go.
I'm actually amazed that you contacted Erica, the actual person with this, and she's completely a normal person. She didn't really explain the love. She just loved it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she was like, of course, she tried to explain it, and I guess that's part of where Jumbo comes from. She was telling me about the sensations and the feeling and the cold and the heat and the touch of textures and the memories that it brought back from childhood. And so she was telling me about all things and trying to communicate, how she could feel something for an object. But I guess what really resonated with me is that she would always come back to my lover, my love story, and I was like, yeah, well, it's really basic, if you think about it. Of course, it's really strange, but if you start thinking it really from her point of view and putting yourself in her shoes, you're like, okay, this obviously doesn't get me the same way that it does to her, but I can totally understand how, a special object with a special memory attached to it can create a lot of emotions and can create that love story. So I guess that's where I was like, okay, well, why not? And like I said, you know, she was making so much sense. Like there was nothing I could argue against her story. And I was like, even if I wanted to challenge it, and I obviously challenged it a little bit because it's interesting to challenge it, but she would always land back on her feet because it was a love story. And you know, what can you challenge in a love story, right? You can't really do much. It's like, okay, well, we're not the same, but we don't have the same taste, but that's okay, I guess.
Well, I found your film more fascinating was because of the fact that your character, there were so many layers to your character. You're talking about bringing up a little bit of loneliness, depression, mental illness, and even sexualization and so on. Could you talk about developing that character? You made her so, how can you say, so interesting and so captivating to watch.
Yeah, I think there was two parts to making that character. One part of it was the research around objectum sexuals, that are the people that they fall in love with objects. And so, you know, I talked to a few psychologists, but really I wanted to approach it again from a love story, from a more first POV, you know, emotional sort of story. And so the connection that there is between a lot of the objectum sexual community is that they oftentimes come from some kind of trauma or some kind of Asperger's syndrome, you know, which is some sort of autism and, you know, isolation. They're obviously not, it's obviously not easy to socialize for them. And that's one of the reasons that I think attracts them to objects rather than human beings that are so aggressive, you know. So that was the one part of creating that character, but I knew all these elements, but I didn't want to tell the audience much of it because I wanted to keep it very emotional and keep the audience away from intellectualizing anything. And so, the second part of it was like, well, one of the reasons I think that I related so much to the subject matter is that when I started writing it, I was like 21, 22, and you know, it's a moment of coming of age as well for anybody. And I think this is a character that's coming of age, and I could find myself in her, in the sort of very shy girl, you know, slightly isolated, the cool girl. I guess these were all feelings that I really related to her with. And so that I think is the more personal way of how you build a character. But then obviously you're like, okay, how would she dress? And, you know, those long t-shirts and jeans, that's the way that I would always dress, you know. I was kind of a tomboy. So that was one part. And then the haircut, I wanted that haircut to be one that she could have made, one that she kind of kept from childhood, you know, because she's a character that's neither woman, neither child. She's kind of ageless. And I really wanted to play on that ambiguity because not only is it a coming of age story, but it's a coming into self story, you know, where she's discovering her sexuality and she's discovering that she has a body that has a sexuality even, you know. So these are all interesting moments in a woman's life, whether a girl or a woman. So I like for her, and a lot of people have told me, we don't know how old she is. Is she 16? Is she 25? And I was like, I'm not even telling you. keep that information to yourself, you know.
I know. I found that was an excellent development. Well, let's talk about Jumbo itself. Did it took you some time to figure out which amusement park ride to use for your film?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. You know, it's a machine, so it doesn't have a specific language. So I went crazy, and I told my producers, we shouldn't like restrain ourselves with borders or anything. You know, you can speak any language. It's a machine. So I started looking for it all over the world. I searched the internet. I sort of integrated the community of ride makers here in Europe to get information on what kind of rides. So we slowly sort of narrowed it down. And we ended up with the Move It 24, which is the ride in the film. But we had found it's like about 5 or 6 months before the shoot, but in the US, and there was no brand in Europe. And we tried to bring it over. Never happened. Way too crazy. And then I guess about like 3 weeks to a month before the shoot, we were still like, who's going to be our jumbo? Who's going to be our jumbo? And then we got a call from someone from the ride makers community saying, oh, we heard you were looking for a Move It 24. Well, there's actually one that's traveling through France at the moment. Maybe you can catch them. So we ended up finding them and bringing them over to Belgium and I guess customizing it because we started from the Move It 24, which is an automatic machine. but then we had to transform it into an actor. And so that took a lot of work from my production designer, and, a few special technicians that knew the rides, because we had to change and override the entire electrical system so that we could make it manual. We changed like 3,000 light bulbs so we could choose the colors of those light bulbs. And then we attached it to another machine on the side so we could have full control of those light bulbs. So it ended up being, a 5 or 6 person show with that machine. Whenever Jumbo was talking, we were like coordinating, 5 technicians. One was doing the smoke, one was doing the lights, one was doing the speed, the other one was doing the movement, and then we were backing with our own lights, so it was like this crazy show around him, which was actually a lot of fun. But I think it was really important to get it live so that Noémie could really have someone to act in front, because even though obviously you didn't have all the sound, which is another element of the language of Jumbo, she did have the lights. And so we rehearsed it a little bit, but then when we were shooting, Noémie had the direction of like, it's her show. So if she wanted to suddenly wait 30 seconds for Jumbo to react, we were there waiting, And I think that was a really interesting way of working, so that we had real genuine moments because of that, because Noémie was completely free and not like timed to very, very harsh timing of like, at second 1, this happens, then 5 seconds later, this happens, and then you have to act with that,
How important was it to you that Jumbo was able to communicate with the character in the film?
How important was that?
Yeah.
It was really, for me, it was essential. I mean, I didn't feel, because I was trying to get it from a very emotional standpoint and get away from intellectualizing it and from judgment, because I think the moment that you intellectualize, you start judging. So because I wanted it to be so personal and so emotional, it was really important that Jumbo could come to life and communicate with the character so that you could see the fantasy that she was living, and we could live things at the same time that she was living, If we didn't have that, then it would just become a freak show, where you're watching someone, but you're really always staying from the outside. And it is fascinating and you're curious, but you're always there, never here with the character,
Yeah. So where did you get the name Jumbo from? Because that itself is also very unique.
Yeah, it is. Two things. I guess I knew that there was this So I grew up in Africa, and in some parts in Africa, to say welcome, you say Jumbo Bwana. And so I was looking for this cute nickname that she could give him. And I was like, well, Jumbo Bwana, why not Jumbo, right? It's welcome. And then afterwards, I remembered that there was this elephant that came, the first elephant that was brought over from Africa to Europe was called Jumbo. And it was a real, I guess that's what Dumbo is based on, but it was kind of a, how do you say, martyr? Do you say martyr? Yeah.
Yeah.
And an elephant that suffered and that everybody loved. So I was like, oh, has a really good background. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, someone just told me an anecdote that was really funny. If we have this 20 seconds, it's like, they were like, do you know that Lyndon B. Johnson had a passion for his dick and that he would call it Jumbo? And I was like, did you make it on purpose? And I was like, no, I did not. And then I went and researched and I was like, it is true. It was the Jumbo. So I was like, maybe unconsciously it was there somewhere, but that was not. Yeah.
That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was like, why? How? Anyway.
I know I was talking to another podcaster recommending your movie, saying, because the podcast talks about like sexualization in movies, and I told her that your film has like one of the most unique sexualization where she goes into, I call it the oil slick scene.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more on how the development of that, because it was very artful, it was very tasteful and artful in its way.
Thank you. Well, very early on in the writing, I knew that there was going to have to be that sex scene, right? And there was two ways of showing it. Either you show something very real and very crude, or you make it like a fantasy. And I really, the moment that I went on the love story angle, I was like, it has to be a fantasy. It has to be like that first orgasm that we're all dreaming of when we're young girls, you know, discovering our sexuality. So I was like, how does an orgasm look? You know, it's like that rush of energy, that rush of light, that rush of sensation and emotion. And so that white room that expressed, you know, the sexual encountering of Jumbo and Jeanne really came in very early in the story. I think it did develop as we went on, like in terms of how the oil interacted with her and how it all like really came together. But the idea of this infinite white room with the infinity of possibilities and dreams and you know, like everything is ahead of you. There's nothing that's going to block you, because it's such an empowering feeling, that first orgasm. So for me, it just felt right from the start. So that's one of the scenes that really never moved barely moved, I would say, from the first draft to the last draft, you know. And I actually fought to keep it in, because it almost got cut on production, because it was an expensive scene to shoot. And the producers one day came and was like, Zoe, we're not going to shoot it. I was like, we are going to shoot it. We are not going to have that scene. Yeah.
Well, let's not forget Noemi. She, you know, with this movie and with her other movies, she's a rising star here in the United States. We're starting to recognize her performance. What was it such a, you know, a bonus to have her in the film like this?
Yeah, it was exceptional to have her in the film. She's such a devoted actress to any kind of role that she does. She's a very courageous actress as well. She doesn't really fear anything. So she's a very instinctive actress. And for a role like this, it's great, you know. And I think having, you know, I auditioned many girls before I decided to cast Noemi. And even though there were amazing other girls that did great performances, she was the less fearful. She was the most courageous, and she would just go at it and just, you know, you can take her full left or full right, she'll just go with you. And she's one of those actresses that's happy to try things out as well with you on the set. And for me, that's an amazing asset. And of course, you know, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is the other film that she did recently, it's actually a film that she shot after Jumbo. It's just the film was edited a lot faster and came out before. And I guess the notoriety that she's getting, that she got from the film, obviously helped Jumbo in getting it exposure and visibility. So that was surprising, but that was, I guess, the cherry on the cake. Like, it was a bonus, you know.
Most excellent. Well, hey, Zoe, hey, thank you very much for speaking with us about Jumbo. You know, I've already recommended this to at least 5 to 10 people. So
great, thank you. Go watch Jumbo.
That's right. Let's go watch Jumbo. And now I hope the world opens and so I could go on an amusement ride. I don't know if I'll fall in love, but I would love to go on an amusement ride.
Yeah, but have the time of your life. That's already enough, you know.
Thank you. I can't wait to see your next movie after this. Thank you.
I can't wait too.
Excellent. Well, bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.